here on MLB Network. We had the Cy Young Awards today. The big ones, the MVP Awards, come tomorrow. Not a lot of suspense. We've had historic performances, of course, from Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. But the other major contenders are shortstops, and there's a case to be made. Let's make that case and do a little digging in. Both Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani had monstrous offensive seasons. Both led their leagues in WAR, weighted runs created plus, that's hitting, slugging, total bases. They have the rate stats. They have the volume. Now, think about this, though. The postseason doesn't factor into the awards voting, but I'm just saying, while it's fresh in our minds, let's think about the effect of a shortstop on winning baseball games. This is Bobby Witt and Francisco Lindor making fantastic plays in the playoffs. It's fresh in our minds. They make the routine plays. They make those sensational plays. It's obvious when you're watching them, and we always have a tendency to forget about the importance of fielding when we give out the awards. So, again, while it's fresh in our mind, think about the plays that these guys just made. Well, let's go league by league. Ohtani is also a pitcher, but he didn't pitch this year. He didn't play the field at all. 159 games, all at DH. So, match them up, Ohtani versus Francisco Lindor. Weighted runs created plus 181 to 137. That's a big edge for Shohei Ohtani. Base running runs, that's BSR, base running runs, 9.8 for Ohtani, 4 for Lindor. So Lindor is quite good, but again, Ohtani, 59 stolen bases. He got caught 4 times. Again, Ohtani is an impact base runner. It's all Ohtani so far. So it comes down to this. Francisco Lindor is playing 151 games at shortstop with a plus 12. There is plus 12 in defensive runs, fielding run value. That's the StatCast defensive metric. Ohtani is not playing the field at all. So when you add it all up, wins above replacement, WAR, if you want to go by that, is 9.1 to 7.8. So essentially, it's 9 to 8. WAR is an approximation. It's close. So the question is, does Lindor's elite fielding at shortstop make up the gap in hitting and base running? The voters will likely say no. And if it's another position, it's a lot easier. But at shortstop, it's not. And remember this, Lindor's candidacy lost momentum when he hurt his back in the final month, and the Mets continued to win without him. We all kind of just stopped talking about it. But remember, Lindor came back for that final weekend with the Mets' playoff hopes on the line, and he totally delivered. He went 4 for 9 in those 2 pivotal games, scoring 4 runs, drove in 5. In that huge opener in the Braves in the final day doubleheader, he had a 2-run home run in the 9th, down 1 to clinch a playoff spot. Ohtani still led the National League in win probability added. He was clutch as well. But Lindor is contending here. I'm saying he has a case. Okay, to the American League, I'll keep this shorter. Aaron Judge is not a DH. He's a center fielder. But he's a below-league average center fielder. And while he's a decent runner, he's about league average there, too. While Bobby Witt of the Royals is an elite fielder and an elite base runner while playing shortstop. Witt played 161 games. He missed 1 day. Slick fielding, hard charging, and he was second in the American League to Judge in slugging. He outslugged Juan Soto. So let's match them up now. Do it the same way. Objective methodology. Weighted runs created plus. Aaron Judge 218, Bobby Witt 168. That's 50 points. That's a big gap for Aaron Judge. Fielding run value, though, defense, that is a -3 for Judge. It's a plus 12 for Bobby Witt. Base running runs. Witt's at plus 4.5. Aaron Judge is just barely in the negative. That's about league average. So you put it all together, Fangraphs WAR that uses the StatCast defensive metrics. It's 11.2 to 10.4. 11 to 10. Again, WAR's an approximation. This matchup is close. Aaron Judge had a 458 on base. He slugged over 700. He's a strong MVP. But this is very close. Dan Plesac, I'm throwing it out there because, again, if they're not playing shortstop and playing all the games that they played, I'm not even blinking. But here, Dan, I am blinking. I'm wondering about this. So let's start with Witt versus Judge. How close do you think it is?
I think it's very close. And I'm going to make a statement, and you're going to probably think I'm off my rocker. If I were to start a team right now and you said, okay, you get to pick one player to start your team, I would take Bobby Witt Jr.
Oh, yeah. No,
I mean,
right. Of course.
He is just starting to scratch the surface of what he can be. He's in year 2, and he's already, when I watch him play, he reminds me of a guy I played with in Milwaukee, a Hall of Famer, Robin Yount.
Yeah.
Long stride. He can make all the plays. He can affect the game in so many ways.
So how close are you? I mean, could you? Because someone should make a case for Bobby Witt and give him a vote. I'm not saying everybody, but somebody. I mean, look at this. These are the WAR leaders. Again, WAR is an approximation. Judge played center field, so he's not a DH. I want to point that out. But Witt is he's super fast. You saw him in the playoffs. He can absolutely field. Like he can win games in a lot of ways at shortstop.
I will say this. If he played in a larger market and had more games on national TV in Boston, in New York, you would approach this guy and see him in an entirely different light. Brian, he is one of the top 5 players in the game. And I don't think
Would you vote for him? What's your vote?
I would vote Judge because he just had another historic year. Even though the first 3 weeks of the season for Judge got off to a slow start. And I know a lot of Yankee fans and a lot of people in the industry are like, you know what? This is what happens when you get on the other side of 30. This is a contract that the Yankees are going to regret that they made. He turned that around. Aaron Judge, in my opinion, if you're going to ask me one guy I wouldn't want to face with a game on the line, it's that guy right there. He's an absolute monster.
Again, the postseason doesn't count to this. Judge did not have a great postseason, but his regular season was just stellar. I would have to say I'd probably end up in the real world. I'd vote Judge as well. I'd be very close to voting for Francisco Lindor. I really would, because there's a reason a DH has not won an MVP. As great as Ohtani was, I know he pitches, but he didn't pitch this year. And we stopped talking about Lindor. And look, I've not always been like the biggest fan of Francisco Lindor, but this year I'm totally sold. And in those last couple of days, Dan, I didn't even get into all the weeds on this. Remember, they were in Milwaukee. They're losing to Milwaukee, and it looks bad. They can't even win a game. He goes in, he walks to lead off the game. He steals a base, he scores a run in the first inning, and the Mets could breathe. They win that game. First game of the doubleheader, he wins it with a 2-run home run. I'm saying, even though Ohtani has the edge in win probability added and the hitting and all that, and he's a great runner and a better runner even than Lindor, he does not play the field. That guy's playing a good shortstop.
I couldn't agree with you more. And when you talk about the slow start that Lindor had, and the Mets got off to a very miserable start, they went into the month of May. It seemed like they were doomed in May. Another guy, a lot like Chris Sale, the first couple of years of that Mets contract have been good. They haven't been really what Mets fans have expected. But you got to see the second half of the season how good a player this guy really is. And I talked to a lot of coaches on the Mets staff, and they say this guy eats, drinks, and sleeps baseball, comes to play every day. And one thing you touched on, he posts up. And for him not to play due to that back issue, it had to be really bad, because one thing that guy does, he goes out there and he plays.
He was fantastic in the playoffs. Again, I'm the same way. I can be critical if I don't think you're getting after it. This year, I'm totally sold on the guy.
You could
totally won me over.
You could sway me more on Lindor over Ohtani than you could Witt over Judge.
All right. Well, we'll see what. I mean, we know what's going to happen. They're not going to go to shortstop. I just try to sway. The votes are in. I can't sway anything at this point, Dan. At least you're on my side here and there. When we come back, what the Yankees are saying and trying to read into what they're saying about their meeting with their former right fielder, Juan Soto. That's next. Welcome back. It's MLB Tonight, presented by Mattress Firm. We were just talking about Aaron Judge Monday night, downtown New York City. Aaron Judge hosting his second annual All Rise Foundation Gala, which aims to aid youth through various social, academic, and sports activities. Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Austin Wells, Anthony Volpe, the Yankees were there in force, included live auctions for several game day experiences with Judge, the future MVP. Here he is on his own event.
Getting a chance to be in this position, be on this platform. I've seen so many guys before me, Jeter, Sabathia. My dad always talked about Dave Winfield. All those guys had foundations. They always gave back. Didn't matter how many All-Star games, MVP, Cy Young, whatever they had. They always tried to give back. So, I think it was those guys laying the foundation, my parents laying the foundation. So we'll just try to kind of follow their footsteps.
By the way, just want to throw in, we talk about, his value when he slugged and then went to postseason. He's a solid citizen of baseball and of this country.
Brian, he's everything that's good about the game of baseball.
Fantastic. Just make a quick mention. That's fantastic. Good for him. He's always a pleasure to deal with, and he's one of the top stars in the sport. That's not easy. Also now, what about Juan Soto, the guy who was hitting with Aaron Judge this year at a historic rate, at a Ruth and Gehrig rate, really? Tim Healy putting out that Hal Steinbrenner, the Yankees owner, said we had a good meeting with Juan Soto. It was very honest, said it lasted a couple of hours. How confident is he that the Yankees will sign Soto? No idea. Will be in the mix. All right. You can read into that. We've been reading into these comments that I don't know if you want to call them tepid, but nobody's saying, hey, we're a front runner. We must bring him back. I think Hal Steinbrenner is just being honest, saying there's so much demand out there, and at a certain price point, anybody might have to balk at this.
Brian, I go back to Game 5 of the World Series, literally a half hour after the game was over. he met the media. And normally a guy would say, hey, disappointing, wonderful year, enjoyed my time here. He didn't dodge the issue. He said, listen, I'm going to listen to all offers. And if you read between the lines, Brian, my gut feeling has me saying he's going where he's getting the best contract. And I don't know, I'm not saying he doesn't have an allegiance and didn't enjoy his time with the Yankee, but I think he's going to where he's going to get paid the most.
And the prices that we're hearing, at a certain point, anybody would buy. At a certain point, again, I've done the studies on this, you can pay 14 to 17% of your total payroll to one guy. And you can say that it's him. But the Yankees have several aircraft carriers in their harbor already, including Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. At a certain point, so here's like the salaries for next season. Judge is making 40. Cole's at 36. Giancarlo Stanton at 32. He's revitalized, but he's at 32. Rodon is nearly 28, and then you drop down. So anything below 20 million, fine. But you've got 4 aircraft carriers right there. Not a lot of teams have 4.
No, and think about this. You and I were sat on the desk after the winter meetings about 4 years ago when Manny Machado and Harper signed those deals for $300 million. I looked at you, you looked at me, we were like, man, that's real money. Like that may be a contract you look to regret. Those 2 contracts have been great contracts for both those guys and the team. But this is another stratosphere. This isn't $300 million. This is double that. It's going to be north of 600.
That's what's incredible. Like Ohtani has just kind of blown our sights on this because he's at $700 million. Now, much of that is deferred. So kind of the hit that the Dodgers take is basically $46 million per. But you see Trout signed his, but Trout was a little younger. He was a superstar, homegrown. They wanted to keep him in Anaheim forever. The Betts was an extension. Judge was pure free agency. But again, those, you can wrap your head around the $300 million. And a lot of those are working out. Look, we just talked about Lindor. That's looking like, hey, that's going to work out. Tatis, the jury's still out on that. But Machado and Bryce Harper, they are foundational superstar players. But again, they're at 300 to 330, not 660.
And I think what happens is you start looking at the Ohtani contract of 700. He's a completely different animal. He just is. He's an international phenomenon, a huge market in Japan. He's a global baseball player that I'm sure the Dodgers are recouping some of that, not just with what he's doing in the United States.
Right.
So
now, this guy's a superstar, too.
No question about it. But I don't think there's any question if you talk about the general fan asking about Ohtani. I've had more guys, people that around this New Jersey area, that when the Dodgers came for a 3-game series and played the Yankees Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there was a buzz to go to a Yankee game to go see Ohtani.
I think it's fair to compare him, right. He's a transcendent player, but Bryce Harper, we know, changed Philadelphia baseball. Manny Machado has changed San Diego baseball. Soto could change a ball club out there. But again, he's so young. He's going to be age 26 season. However, he already is not fielding or base running at an elite level, right? To be kind. So he kind of exacerbates a lot of the Yankees' problems. They weren't a good baseball team on the field, and that's how their season ended.
This is the dilemma for the Yankees. He answered a lot of questions in that lineup. Where was the protection going to be from Judge? What were they going to get out of Stanton? Could he stay healthy? The one thing they got when they got Soto, they got what they were hoping they were going to get. And they got that more.
All right, again, we'll keep you up to date on all this, all the whining and dining for Juan Soto there. He's going to meet with the Yankees. When we come back, we'll talk Hall of Fame ballot. We talked about the very top of the ballot. Easy call on Ichiro. Then you have CC Sabathia. What about King Felix? Felix Hernandez. He gets some backing here on MLB Tonight. Next.
Truly the king of Seattle. The king, Felix Hernandez, the all-time strikeout leader in Seattle Mariners history.
What a career it's been for King Felix.
Got him! Struck him out! Number 15 for Felix. It finally happened! A perfect game by a Seattle Mariner. It was done by the king.
Long live the king.
Yes, Felix Hernandez making his debut on the Hall of Fame ballot. I want to get to some of the names of strong candidates. Like, maybe it's not a slam dunk. Again, Ichiro makes his debut. CC Sabathia getting a lot of support early on. But there's a lot of players that you see. Hanley Ramirez, Troy Tulowitzki. On there, it'll be year 2 for Chase Utley. Ben Zobrist, first-time player. David Wright barely stayed on the ballot. You can see Curtis Granderson. Like, I hate to leave guys off that are making their debut who had proud major league careers, and maybe they don't get the Hall of Fame support. But Felix Hernandez, Dan, I wonder how much support he will get on the ballot. What's your take?
I don't have a vote, but if I did have one, Brian, I would say yes. I thought he had an 8-year window where he was as good a starting pitcher as there was in the American League. Unfortunately, those were some very bad Seattle Mariner teams. They weren't the good Mariners teams. He was a workhorse. I think this guy, this guy is just, he was just a workhorse. A boatload of innings.
My issue with him, Dan, I'll just jump in, is that he had a peak, but not quite like Johan Santana. So like Johan Santana fell off the ballot, and he had this monstrous peak, where for 4 years you could say he's the best pitcher in baseball. Felix wasn't quite Johan at his peak, but then he also doesn't have the length, because after age 29 season, he's not CC Sabathia. So I think he's caught in between, but I'm glad you want him in, because somebody should make a case for King Felix.
I just thought for a while, Brian, he just ate up a lot of innings. He had multiple 200 inning seasons in a row. And I kind of look at it, this is kind of a bad analogy. You kind of look at him like I looked at Fergie Jenkins, who was on a great pitcher that was not on a lot of teams that were really good. And the same thing with King Felix. He was just before they were really good, and after that they've been a lot better. He was a good pitcher. I still think in baseball, a lot of teams say they have an aces, but there's really about 12 aces. For that 8-year span, he was one of those 12.
He was great. Like you said, for like the 9-10 years, he was great. It's just he's kind of caught in between. I don't know how much support he's certainly a strong candidate. He should be on there. 2 second basemen that are, I think, pretty good candidates. I think a lot of second basemen don't get a lot of play. I think Chase Utley should be in the Hall of Fame. Dustin Pedroia and Ian Kinsler hit the ballot. I'm strong on Pedroia. Non-analytically. Again, you can go 10 years. You have to pick those 10 years. He did not have the length. But for Pedroia, to me, he's a flat-out winner. The object is to drive your team to postseason appearances. He did that. And for a 10-year stretch, he was one of the better players in baseball, an impact winner, and an outstanding fielder. Only now in the age of war are we giving these fielders their due.
I agree with you. Unfortunately for me, and this is hard being a former player, great player, respect him. Listen, he was an overachiever, small guy coming out of college, out of Arizona State, had to work for everything that he has ever gotten in the game of baseball. An unfortunate injury cut his career short the last 4 or 5 seasons. Good player, Brian. A level below being a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
Okay, and this, I know it's hard drawing the line, but you have to draw the line. It has to be exclusive, or there's no value to it. Ian Kinsler looked like toward the end of his career. Now, again, also that stopped short. But for a while, Kinsler looked like he was going to be like a 60 WAR player. 60 WAR is what usually gets you in the Hall of Fame. But I have to remember, look, the fielding, the base running, the ability to get on base. At one point, he was traded straight up for Prince Fielder. So if you're thinking, oh, how good could he have been? Okay, he was traded straight up for Prince Fielder. That's how he was regarded while he was playing.
Yeah, and I hate to be like the bearer of, I kind of feel the same way about Kinsler that I do with Pedroia. Both great players. I'd love to have them on my team. I would have loved to have been on a team and played with them. I liked everything that they were about. But to me, that Hall of Fame is an elite list. Really good player. I just don't see him as a Hall of Fame player.
I've long said that if I had a choice, as a voter, I would try to choose to honor the clean player. However, I think at a certain amount of time, I would not be withholding my vote for Carlos Beltran. Beltran, when he retired, he had all sorts of momentum. People were thinking, hey, this guy is a great fielder. You see the percentage, he got up to 57%. The sign-stealing scandal hurt him because he was a big part of that. But we've seen A.J. Hinch is back in the game, Cora's back in the game, and they're flourishing. At a certain point, I wonder if the writers will get behind Beltran after a number of years. Again, he didn't build his career off sign-stealing. He was part of it, but it's not like, for me, that and steroids are 2 separate issues.
I don't have a vote. If I did, I would vote him in. Power hitter, great switch hitter, and more importantly, tremendous postseason player.
All right, again, we'll have the official vote totals for you and the announcement right here on MLB Network on January 21st. We'll take a short break when we come back.
今年の MLB シーズンもいよいよ幕を閉じ、ファンにとっては待ちに待った MVP 賞の発表や選手たちの功績を振り返る機会がやってきましたね。アーロン・ジャッジ、ショウヘイ・大谷、フランシスコ・リンドー、ボビー・ウィット Jr. といったスター選手たちが、それぞれの個性と才能を最大限に発揮し、チームを勝利へと導いた姿は、ファンにとっても忘れられない思い出となったことでしょう。今年の MVP 賞の候補者たちは、どれも甲をつけがたい実績を持っています。ショウヘイ・大谷は、今シーズン 投手としては登板しなかったものの、DH として159試合に出場し、驚異的な打撃成績を残しました。WEIGHTDRUNA CRE ATEDPLUSWRC では181を記録し、攻撃面ではリーグトップの数値を誇ります。さらに59盗塁を成功させるなど、走塁面でも非凡な才能を発揮しました。一方で守備にはついておらず、そこが他の候補者と比較する際の議論の焦点となります。アーロン・ジャッジはどうでしょうか。リーグを代表するスラッガーとして、彼もまた歴史的なシーズンを送ったと言えます。彼の WRC は驚異の218、SLUGG や INGPE、RC、ENT、AGE、長打率も700を超えるなど、打撃面では大谷を上回る部分も見られます。しかし、センター守備の評価はリーグ平均を下回り、3DE、FENSIVE、RUNSSAVD。守備面での貢献度には疑問が残ります。それでも、彼の存在感と圧倒的な打撃力は、チームを象徴する選手としてふさわしいと言えるでしょう。そして、忘れてはならないのが、フランシスコ・リンドーやボビー・ウィット Jr. の存在です。リンドーは、守備面で12の FIELDINGRUNSSAVED を記録し、探偵士としての守備力はリーグトップクラス。また、シーズン終盤の重要な場面でチームを勝利へ導く活躍を見せた点は、彼の価値を高める要因と言えるでしょう。一方、ボビー・ウィット Jr. は、若手ながらも161試合に出場し、攻撃守備、走塁すべてにおいて高いパフォーマンスを発揮しました。特に、ショートのポジションを守りながら、SLUGG や INGPE、RC、ENT、AG で他の一流選手たちに匹敵する数字を叩き出した点は、特筆すべきです。MVP 争いと並行して、殿堂入りの議論も白熱しています。キング・フェリックスとして知られるフェリックス・ヘルナンデスは、そのピーク時のパフォーマンスで多くのファンを魅了しました。特に100イニング以上を投げ続けた8年間の安定感は、彼をエリート投手の一人として認識させるに十分なものでした。しかし、29歳以降の成績低下やプレーオフ進出に生まれなかった点が評価を難しくしています。また、カルロス・ベルトランも注目すべき候補者の一人です。彼はスイッチヒッターとしての能力に加え、ポストシーズンでの活躍が際立ちます。しかし、サイン盗みスキャンダルが彼のキャリアに影を落としており、それが殿堂入り、選出への障壁となっている現状です。それでも、彼の実績や影響力を考えると、長期的には選ばれる可能性が高いと見る専門家も多いです。こうした議論は、単に選手個々の評価にとどまらず、MLB 全体の未来にも大きな示唆を与えています。アーロン・ジャッジやショウヘイ・オタニのようなスター選手たちが新たな基準を作り出し、若手選手がその後を追う形でリーグ全体のレベルが引き上げられています。さらに、MLB がグローバル化する中で、国際的なスター選手がリーグの魅力をさらに高める役割を果たしていることも注目に値します。最後に、皆さんはどう思いますか？ MVP 賞や殿堂入りにふさわしい選手について、ぜひコメント欄で意見を聞かせてください。また、この動画が気に入ったら、いいねとチャンネル登録をお願いします。私たちと一緒に MLB の魅力を引き続き楽しんでいきましょう。次回もお楽しみに。